All right. Any more questions about anything that we covered so far? Feel free to shout out or type in the chat. So let's go ahead and dive into Google Sheets now. So like I said, I'll put you guys to sleep with Google Sheets after lunch, right? Um, so Google Sheets is kind of one of those, spreadsheets is one of those things that people always get scared about, I guess. And it's one of those things that people always kind of shy away from, but they can be so useful to have. So we just need to learn a couple of basic skills and we'll be good to go. Okay, so let's go ahead and take a dive into Google Sheets then. So we're here on slide number, let's jump into slide number 67. If you're following along with me, slide number 67. And here's our top features to know in Google Sheets. So we'll learn how to freeze sheets, freeze rows and columns, how we can sort all of our data, how we can filter through it, how we can make some formulas to help us make things easier, how we can do some conditional formatting, and how we can make some charts and graphs. Okay, down at the bottom of slide number 31 here is a link called example. It'll take you over to this page, which asks you to make a copy, and go ahead and click make a copy. What that does is it will have you make a copy of this Google Sheet that just has a bunch of example data, a bunch of example stuff in it. Okay. So go ahead again, click on the example button down at the bottom of slide 67, and it'll tell you to make a copy. Go ahead and give that a click to make a copy, and it'll give you this sheet here. All right. And so on the first sheet, notice there's several tabs down at the bottom. We'll kind of play around between those in a little bit here. But in this first sheet called Sheets, we have a checklist here. You can tell I love my checklists of main things to know. We're not going to cover all of them today. We'll cover just kind of most of them. Okay. Of course, if you have more questions, feel free to shout out. If there's something that you've been trying to do in Google Sheets, let me know. Okay, so our first thing is we need to learn how to sort our data A to Z and high to low. All right, so let's jump over to, let's go over to, let's head over to quarter number 2, the quarter 2 tab at the bottom. So if you're following along with me, head over to the quarter 2 tab at the bottom. Then once you're in here, we'll see we have a student's first names, their last names, points earned, and then there's a section for points possible. You can click and drag and move the graph out of the way. It behaves like a picture, so you have to click on it once to highlight it, and then you can click and drag it to move it out of the way if it's blocking your view. Okay, and so what we want to do is we want to organize all these student names here. We want to organize them all alphabetically by last name. Okay, so what we need to do is when we hover our mouse over column B, so up at the top here, your columns are vertical, they run up and down. Those are the ones that have the letters, so those are your columns. Your rows run horizontally, those are your numbers. All right, so columns are A, B, C, rows are 1, 2, 3. So when we hover over column B at the top, and we can give it a click, or we don't even have to. When we hover over column B at the top, we'll see a little black triangle that shows up next to it. Give it a click on the little drop down button, and we're going to scroll down a little bit on this menu, and we're going to find sort sheet A to Z. So A to Z means alphabetical. If we are sorting numbers instead of letters, A to Z means small to big, Z to A means big to small. Okay. For our purposes here, we're going to do alphabetical order here. So we'll sort the sheet A to Z, give that a click, and just like that, it takes all of that data and puts it in alphabetically. Awesome, that worked perfectly, did it not? Uh-oh, wait, did something go wrong? Can anybody let me know in the chat or in or just unmute yourself what went wrong there if you're following along with me? Like it put it in the right order, it put it alphabetically. It did move everything, but what else kind of went along with it? Yeah, we noticed that all these headings got kind of brought along with everything else. Yeah, all those titles, exactly. So we're going to undo. So we're going to come up to the top left and do the undo or Control Z. And so what we need to do is we need to freeze that top row. All right. So to freeze, we come up to the View tab at the top. So we come up to View, and then the first option down is Freeze, and then go into that, and we'll do one row. So View, Freeze, one row. Give that a click. Now that does a couple of things. Scroll down the page a little bit. You'll notice that top row, those headers, those titles, are going to always be staying there at the top. That's just handy by itself. But the other thing it does is it'll keep those at the top even if you sort everything else. So let's do the same thing we did a minute ago here. We'll hover our mouse over column B, click on the little drop down next to B, and we'll sort sheet A to Z. Aha, there we go. So now all of our last names are in the right alphabetical order, and the top row did not get messed up. Cool, awesome. That's what freezing does. Okay, now what you can also do is you can freeze not only your rows, you can also freeze columns. So if we come up to the View tab again, do freeze, and then below the section we did before, we'll go under columns, and maybe we'll do 2 columns. And that freezes those on the left, and even if we scroll to the right of the page, notice those names are still staying there over on the side. Again, that's really handy. I mean, I'm basically using this Google Sheet as like a grade book, right? Imagine if I have a whole bunch of grades in here, it's going to go really far off to the side. And so instead of losing which student I'm looking at, I can keep them frozen over on the left-hand side, and I'm not going to lose anything. It's very, very handy. Okay. So back on that first Sheets tab, we'll check off that first box that says sorting A to Z, high to low. Those check boxes, you just click right on top of the empty box, and it gives you a check mark. I saved several years of Amy's life. All right, I like it. All right, so our next one, we did freezing. So we actually did the first 2. Our next one, our third one down in our checklist here, is filtering. So filtering is where we can hide away the things that we don't need to see. It doesn't delete them; it just hides them away until and we're able to focus down on the things that we actually need to see. All right. So let's go over to the roster tab at the bottom. So the second tab over at the bottom of the screen there. If we go over to the roster tab. And so again, we have our first names, last names, we have guardians' names, we have addresses, we have homerooms, grades, grade levels, what type of lunch they have, phone numbers, all that fun stuff, right? So what we want to do is maybe we want to filter and see only students that are a part of like a certain teacher's homeroom. Maybe we need to do that. So what we can do is we can create a filter. I I had way too much fun coming up with names. I had to come up with a bunch of fake names. So I mean, what was I to think of? So I had I had to entertain myself and come up with a bunch of fake names. So if you get the references, good for you. I was really bored, so I had to come up with something funny to entertain myself with. Anywho, all right. So here's how we can create a filter. First thing we need to do is come up to this blank square. It's the blank square between A and 1. So right up here in the top left of the sheet. If we give a click on that, it's going to highlight the whole sheet for us. Okay. Then what we do is we come over and find the filter icon, which is this over here. It looks like a little funnel. And we give a click right on top of the icon, and everything will turn green for us here. And notice the headers now, all these titles, have little green like triangles next to each of them. This is where we can set our filters. All right. So if we're going to filter by homeroom, we'll come over to the homeroom cell, and we'll click on the little green triangle next to it. And we'll scroll down in that window a little bit. And we'll see all of these check marks. And basically what all this stuff means down here is we can, everything that has a check mark next to it here means it's going to show up for us. Okay. If I don't want to see anything, I can hit clear and all those check marks go away. And then I can pick and choose the things I want to see. So maybe I just want to see just Mr. Paul McCartney's and Mrs. Janis Joplin's homeroom kids. Those will be probably entertaining homerooms, but I'm not gonna lie, that'd be pretty cool. And we'll hit OK at the bottom. All right. So now it's hiding away everything else. It's only showing the ones that are a part of those homerooms. Okay. So all of them, and all of them are the only ones that apply to that filter. It didn't delete any of the other ones, it's just hiding them away for the time being. Another thing we can do to go even further, if we're going to come back to these filters, if we're using filters a lot, something else we can do is we can come over here to the drop down next to the little filter icon, click on the drop down next to it, and we can click on Save as Filter View. This black bar at the top is going to come up, and we can name this filter something. So we can call this, McCartney, and Joplin, and just hit enter. And we can close out of that with a little white X at the end of that black bar. And if we are done filtering, we're done looking at the filters, we can just turn off the filter by clicking on the same funnel icon as we did at the beginning. Everything else comes back as it was before. But if I want to turn back on that one saved filter that I had before, I can come down to the little drop down and I can find, oh, here's my McCartney and Joplin filter, and that comes right back for me. Okay, now something even more extra here, something even better. You'll notice, watch what happens to the address bar at the top. Watch how the how the web address changes when I go to a different filter. Notice the address changed, right? So what that means is if you need to send somebody else, like send your principal or send a parent or something, a part of a spreadsheet, but you don't need the whole thing, they only need to see a filtered section, you can copy this link, and that link will go just to this filtered section. Okay, so because that is now a unique link, it will go straight to this filtered view. Pretty handy stuff. Okay, so back on that first tab under Sheets, we can check off filtering. Next one on the checklist here is check boxes. This one's really easy. All we have to do is click into whatever cell or cells that we want, and I can make a whole list if I want. And I can go under Insert, and then find towards the bottom we'll have checkbox, and it drops those checkboxes in. Okay, I can change the size of the checkboxes by changing the size of the font. That'll change them. When you click into a checkbox, you can flip it between checked and unchecked. All right, pretty easy to do. That one's super easy. Next one is conditional formatting. So this one's a little bit more involved, but we'll be okay. Let's go ahead and let's go into let's go ahead into the quarter 3 tab. So head over to the quarter 3 tab at the bottom, and you're going to see some colors here. When you go to the quarter 3 tab, you're going to see a bunch of colors, different colors in the percentage column, right? And go ahead and change some of the numbers in the points earned column. and notice what change. Notice how things change. So it's like make some drastic changes, and notice how the values change in the percentage column, and how the colors change of those values. You're going to see some of that stuff change a lot. All right. So if you're kind of poking around in there, you'll notice one, that the percentage value changes to a different percentage, and two, the color changes as well. So let me show you how I did that. So what I did was I did some conditional formatting. So with conditional formatting, if we just break apart the two terms, condition means some sort of condition is met, something happens to meet a certain standard. Formatting means the color of your cell, the color of your font, the italics, bold, underline, the style of your font, that kind of thing. All right. So if we put those back together, conditional formatting, if something happens, change the formatting of the cell. That's all it means. All right. So let's take a look at how to do that. So first thing to do is we'll click on column E. We'll actually click on the letter E up at the top. That'll highlight the whole column for us. Then we'll come over to the Format tab at the top, and we'll go down and we'll find conditional formatting. Now over here, a window pops up on the right-hand side, and we have all of these rules that are already created for us. All right, these are the ones that I already made in here. What I'll have you guys do is just delete all of them. Hit the garbage can for each one. Hit those garbage cans because we're just going to make them from scratch here. Okay, so it should look like this. So it should be highlighted on column E. It should be all blank on the far right side under conditional formatting. Okay, so what we'll do now is we're going to set up our rules, basically setting up our conditions. So we'll give a click on this button that says add a rule. And we already have the range set. That was the point of highlighting column E. And then under format rules, we're going to set our conditions. So format cells if, and we can click on this drop down, and we can choose what our condition is going to be. There are a ton of things that you can do in here. All right. For our purposes here, what I want to do is have a condition where the students that are getting like 90 to 100% in the class, maybe the background color is green. Kids that are getting between like 80 and 89%, they get a yellow color. Kids that are getting a 70 to 79%, maybe they get a pink. Kids that are getting a 60 to 69%, they get like darker red. And kids that get getting below 60%, maybe they get like a really dark, like a black or something. Okay, so we have that little visual confirmation that we can tell what students are getting just at a quick glance. All right, so what we need to do is find the right rule that makes sense with what we're trying to do. In that case, we're going to scroll down a little bit and we're going to find the one that, in this case, we probably will do. We'll probably do is between. That probably is the best one to do. All right. Now, since these are going to be percentages, we have to do everything in decimals, right? So if a value is between 1 or 100% and 0.9 or 90%, here are the formatting that we're going to do. So maybe we'll make it a nice, nice bright green, and we'll say done. Notice one of them changed on mine already, depending on how much you fiddled with the how much you fiddled with the scores. That may be different for you. All right, and then we'll add another rule. Make sure we're still highlighted, so we're applying it to all of column E, and we'll make another one, and we'll do is between, and the high end is 89%. I'll probably do 89.999%. So if they get an 89 and change and 0.8, then what did I say? I'll make it like an orange. There we go. So I can instantly see all my B's. Add another rule. And I'll do another one is between. And these are my C's. So 0.7999 and 0.7. and make these ones yellow. I can see all my C's. And then I'll make another one for between 0.6999 and 0.6. Those are my D's. And I'll make those ones red. And then our last one, since this is our last one, and pretty much anything below, we can say is lower than, or is less than, there we go. If it's less than 0.6 or 60%, then maybe we'll make it black. And I can change the font color to make it white, so there's some contrast there, so it's really easy to see. And just like that, now my percentage column is really easy to see how grades are distributed here. So I can easily see, oh, I have one kid that's doing real good. I got lots of them that are in trouble here. I got a couple that are doing pretty good. I got one that's right on the edge of an F there. So I can see all that stuff really, really easily. And as things get updated, so if a kid really turns things around here and he does a better score, all that stuff is going to be updated for us. All right, so that's what conditional formatting is. Obviously, there's tons of different ways to use it. That's just one way to use it. All right, any questions about that? That was a lot for sure. Any questions about conditional formatting or anything else that we covered so far here in Sheets? I'll check on my chat here. Okay. Close out of that. All right, for the interest of time, I'm not going to go too far into notes and comments. I'll go into formulas really, really quick here. Back into the quarter 3 tab again. I just want to show you guys how I made it so these percentage scores were updated automatically like that. So what we'll do is we'll actually just delete everything in here. So we're going to click on the first row under the title. So keep keep row 1 there, so we still have the titles there, but the first one below that, so in this case it's row 2, you can drag that all the way down to the last one. So those are all highlighted, and just backspace to delete those away. And I'm just going to show you guys how to make those formulas. The conditional formatting is going to stay there, by the way, because the conditional formatting is attached to the cells, not to any formulas or anything that are in the cells. Okay. So let's go into making a basic formula here. So every formula in a spreadsheet is always going to start with an equal sign. All right. Notice a little question mark will pop up there. Once you start typing formulas, it'll give you some help as to how exactly to write it, so it knows what to do. So in this case, we're going to do one of the simplest formulas we can do, which is a simple division formula. So it's going to be an equal sign, and then we're going to take our mouse and we're going to click on the first points earned value here. So in this case, under Cirilla's, she got 600. All right, and of course, in order to calculate a score, you do points earned divided by points possible, right? So we do, it'll be equals, we click on that cell, in this case it's C2, we type a slash, same button as your question mark, and then we click on the other cell. All right, so it should look like equals C2 slash D2, and then hit enter. And now it just made that percentage for me. And even if I change her point value, originally she had 600, well, she got 800 instead. Notice how it changes. Okay. Now, if I want to keep on making these formulas, I can sit here and type these things over again. That one divided by that one, enter, done. I have to do that, 100 more times. That's a big pain in the butt. I don't want to do that. So what I can do instead, give a single click on one of your cells that has a formula already in it, and you'll notice this little blue square that comes up in the corner of that cell. When you hover over it, it gives you a little black crosshair. You click and drag that all the way down to your last row. And just like that, it'll fill in all of those same formulas. And it applies those formulas to the correct row. It's not just copying them, it's actually just continuing the whole series. Okay. If you're feeling very advanced and feeling spicy, you can come over to slide, or I'm sorry, to sheet that's called quarter two at the bottom, and you'll notice that there are also uh, letter grades that are attached to the percentage, and those will change along with the percentage. So like on the first one here, if I change this to a higher number, you'll notice not only does the percentage changes, but the letter grade next to it also changes. That's this formula up here in the formula bar. If you want to copy that and use it for your own purposes, you absolutely can. I had to figure out how to write that, so it knew if it has this certain percentage, write this letter next to it. Okay, so again, this is another way to kind of make the most of your grade book here. Okay, so let me jump back into here. So that was a quick look at formulas. There are tons and tons of formulas in there. The way to find more of them is this button up here, up in the top right, little epsilon, little funky looking E. If you give a click on that, it shows you all of the formulas. The most common ones are the top like 5 or 6 that are here, but there's a ton more. If you click on that Learn More button at the bottom of there, you can search for a specific formula. So if you're trying to do something really, really specific, you can figure out how to do it from here. Okay. All right. Then we have tabs and colors, and I think that will be, yeah, I'll cover tabs and colors, charts, and then we'll do merge and wrap cells, and then we'll call it that's it for Google Sheets. All right. So tabs and colors. This one's super easy. You may have noticed at the bottom of your screen there are multiple tabs, and each one has like a little color strip at the bottom of it. If you want to change the color of those little, it's just for the purposes of color coding things. If you want to change that color, you come down to the name of that cell and click on the little drop down icon next to it, and you'll find the change color button, and you can change it to whatever color you like. Okay, super easy on that one. So we'll check that one off. Next one is charts. And let's jump over to, let's head over to, let's go to quarter three again. Let's go to that quarter three tab. And so what we want to do is maybe we want to make like a chart of how our students are doing here in our quarter three class here. So the first step is we need to highlight the information that we want to show up on the chart. Okay, so in this case, maybe all I want to see is students' last names and the percentage that they have in the class. Maybe that's all I want to see. All right. Now, if you don't have information right next to each other, it's a little tricky to do because highlighting it's a little kind of a pain in the butt because they're not right next to each other. So how do I highlight this one and this one at the same time? Here's your little keyboard trick. Highlight one of them, again, just by clicking on the column header, hold Control on your keyboard, and then click on the other one. All right, it's going to select both of those columns. All right, now we'll go into the Insert tab at the top, and we're going to find Chart. And just like that, I didn't have to click anything else. It automatically figures out which chart is best for this type of data. All right, and just like that, I can change the different types of chart if I'd like. I can come over here and pick around and choose the other types of charts I may want to, poke around with. But this one usually does a pretty good job of figuring out what type of chart you want to do. Okay, I'll just stick with the original that it gave me here. Oop. And let me find the one that I did before. There we go, that's the one I wanted. Over here on the left-hand side, in the chart editor, is also where you can poke around and kind of fiddle with all of the details with your chart. So you can change the like you saw, you can change the type of the chart that it is. You can under the customize section, you can change like the different You can put in a chart title. You can change your different colors of your percentages. So if I want to change this into a different color, I can do that. If you want to go further, another thing you can even do with this chart is when you click on the chart itself, you'll have these little three dots up in the top right of the chart. And there's a couple things you can do in here. One, you can download the chart as a picture right away. So if you just need to like share this chart like with your principal or whatever it is, you can just download this chart and go and share it. All right, which is especially good if you're trying to like edit the chart. So if you were trying to like point or draw a circle on a certain kid. So here's the first kid. I want to maybe have a circle around him. You can just throw that into another program and draw a little circle over it if you needed to. Another thing you can do is you can do this the second to last option here that says move to its own sheet. So what this does is it creates another tab at the bottom of your Google Sheet here, and it just fills up the whole sheet with only this chart. So it makes it a lot easier to see. You don't have to kind of like squish it or try to, so it's tough to see it all. So that way you can just have a nice little chart here that's right built in. Okay. So that was pretty much what I wanted to show you guys in Google Sheets. Of course, there's a ton more that you can do in Google Sheets here. One more thing I wanted to show you was merge and wrapping cells. I'll show you that real quick. If you want to merge cells, what that means is you can have cells that are squished together. Let me go to, yeah, let me go. I can do it in here, I guess. Let me find, just trying to find a good example that I can use here. Yeah, I'll do it on here. So this is just a template I used that has a bunch of like expenditure stuff in it. But merging and wrapping cells, those are two different things. To merge cells means you're squishing multiple cells together. All right. So normally you have each one of these boxes or cells that you can put information in. If for like it's mostly for formatting reasons. If you need to combine cells, you just highlight the ones that you want to combine. So maybe we need to combine all of these cells here into one. We highlight the ones that we want, and we find the merge button, and it merges them all into one giant cell. Okay. If you are trying to merge two cells together that both have information in them, you're going to get this that says you're only going to keep the top or left most thing. So if I say okay, it's only going to keep the thing that was on the left. Okay. Or if you're merging vertically, it would keep the things that is on the top. Okay. Now, wrapping cells is when you are kind of squished for space like this here. So like I have this, this description section here, and the word balance gets cut off. Wrapping cells, let me highlight all these, will let you kind of see everything. It'll bump it down to another line. So wrapping cells is when we come over here, and we have three options. We can do overflow, where it basically pushes over to the next row or to the next column if there's nothing there. Or you have wrap, which just like it shows here, will just bounce the whole cell to another line. Okay, and depending on how wide you make the column, it'll push things down. Okay. And then your final option there was just clipping it, meaning it just stops at the end no matter what. Okay, so that was a little bit of extra information there for you guys. Hopefully our brains aren't exploding too much. Of course, there's still more to learn in Google Sheets here. For our purposes, I'll just pause it right there. All right. Again, in the slideshow, there's more step-by-step stuff for you guys to check out. So let's take another 10 minutes here. We'll come back at 2:13, let's say, and let's take a few minutes. And if you want to find some templates, there was a link for to find the template gallery, or you can find templates the exact same way as we saw back over in Google Docs. If we click on the Google Sheets icon up at the top left, when you're in a Google Sheet, it'll take you into the template gallery where you can find a bunch of templates. All right. If you want to kind of start thinking about how to use Google Sheets as a gradebook or a class roster or an attendance tracker, there's also, just like we saw over in Google Docs, there's a ton of add-ons that you can use in Google Sheets as well. You can also practice freezing rows and filtering data. Kind of poke around and practice with the example sheet I gave you guys. Other than that, if you have any other questions, feel free to ask away. Let's go ahead and take about 10 minutes here to kind of poke around a little bit, and then we'll jump into our last section of the day, Google Forms, and then we'll wrap it up for the day. And again, if you have any questions, feel free to shout out. All right, how are we doing, guys? Any more questions? Brains exploding? Let's see. I was interested in finding out more about this. Oh, sure. Yeah, Bridget, I'll cover that. Yeah, I'll cover that graduate card thing at the end. Absolutely. All right, so are we just about ready to keep on rolling here, guys? Any last thoughts or thoughts or panics about Google Sheets? Hopefully we're not panicking. That'd be bad. All right, so let's go ahead and keep on rolling here. We'll go into Google Forms. So, like I said, this is our last tool to go through for the day. How many of you guys have used Google Forms before? Just let me know in the chat. How many of you guys have actually used it for school stuff before? Amy has. Catherine has.
No.
Got a couple no's. All right, cool.
No.
Couple yeses, couple no's. Cool. All right, so we'll get you guys up to speed with Google Forms here. Awesome. So what Google Forms is, for those of you guys who haven't even touched it yet, Google Forms is a way for you guys to create a poll, create a survey, or to create a fully digital quiz. All right. And the really cool thing about making it a quiz is you can set it to auto grade things for you. Yay. Right. Okay. So let's take a look at our top features here in Google Forms. So for our first thing is we'll look at how to customize the look of your Google form. Of course, you got to make it look nice. Then we'll go into how you can write questions of any type. There's a bunch of different types of questions that you can make. You can also include pictures, videos, or links in your Google form. You can print it as well to make an easy paper quiz maker. For our purposes, we'll probably just skip that because none of us are probably really printing much these days. We can also look at how to make it a quiz and set it to auto grade for your students, and how we can look at all the data that it collects for you, and how we can look at it either in Google Forms or in a Google Sheet. So let's go ahead and get started here. The way to get there, actually, you know what? I'll have you guys do an example for me. So I'm gonna grab this real quick. I'm gonna put the link for it. Oh, that's not the one I wanted. I want my Star Wars one. All right, hang on a second. I thought that was the wrong one. Star Wars quiz. Yeah, you guys are gonna do a Star Wars quiz for me. Prepare yourselves for being nerdy. Okay, let me find this one, I think. Let me make sure I have it set right for you guys. Okay, save, cool. I'm gonna copy this real quick. Copy. And so jump over to the chat here, and I'm gonna paste in a link for you guys. And go ahead and click on that link that I just dropped into the chat. And what I'll have you guys do is you guys are going to respond to a real quick quiz. You don't even have to actually read the questions. I just want to show you guys what it looks like from the student perspective, and then what it looks like as the teacher when you get responses in from your students. So I'm going to responses. Okay. So go ahead and take it just 2 minutes here and run through this little Star Wars quiz for me. It'll take just a second. No worries about being right or wrong. Again, I put the link for it in the chat. Just give a click on that link. It's in the chat, Lisa. So the link that's right above where you put your message there. That's the link to click on. The one that's docs.google.com/forms, etc. You would click on that one. You'd like to contest your answers. We'll take a peek. We'll look at everybody's responses here in just a second. Yeah, so Tammy just brought up an exact right point. She said the answers have to be in the exact same way that I put them. So, i.e., I said the force instead of force, and it was marked wrong. Exactly. I'm gonna show you guys that in just a second here. All right, take one more minute, and then we'll take a look at this for our last of our people here. All right, so let's take a look back on your Zoom screen. You'll be able to see my window here, and so this is what it looks like from the teacher's perspective. I'm able to see under the responses tab. I'm able to see 14 responses came in for me. If I click on the responses tab, I can see all of this information here. So I can see the average score, I can see the median score, I can see the point range, I can see the distribution, all that cool stuff. And I can see frequently missed questions, which that's actually a new thing. I don't remember that being actually being a thing. So that's pretty awesome. So we can kind of see all this cool stuff in here. And now this is where, of course, you guys noticed you guys got a grade at the end. So somebody asked, for the director question, it says it's worth 3 points, and I got 2 right, but no points. So how do we adjust that? Good question. So let's take a dive in here. So when we are in the responses tab here, we can go into the summary, which is just gives you kind of a general overview of how people did. And our second one is our question. And what this does is it breaks apart all people's responses by question. Okay, and this is probably in my opinion, the easiest way to grade, because all you have to do is look at the question once, and you're looking at everybody's different responses, and they're essentially piled on top of each other. Meaning, students that responded the exact same way, you're not going to see every single student's responses. Meaning, if you marked a question as right for one kid, and it's going to assume it's going to be right for everybody else that gave that exact same answer. That can save you a ton of time. So let's take a look at how that works here. So again, under the responses tab, under the questions section here, under our first question, we see who's Luke Skywalker's father, and we have 12 people that said Darth Vader. That's the right answer. Any of the other ones were wrong. So we had one person say Jabba the Hutt, one person say Jar Jar. You guys are wrong. What are you talking about? That one's already set, good to go. That question's done. So I just checked all 14 people on that question in 2 seconds. All right. Next arrow at the bottom there will bring me over to the three directors question. All right. So which 3 were correct? So in this case, if somebody answered those three people, George Lucas, J.J. Abrams, and Ryan Johnson, those are the right answers. Okay. Obviously, that's just correct. That sounds good. Here's another combination for people that said, here's 3 people that said George Lucas, Michael Bay, and J.J. Abrams. That one's not right, but I can still give them 2 points. And just like that, I can click save. And so now that is adjusted. For this one, for people who said James Cameron, 6 people said it that way. I can still give them their 2 points. I can come down to the next one. People got one of those right, so there are 2 people that got that one right. I can give them their 1 point, and I'll say save. And just like that, I have those partial points laid out correctly. So I'm able to give out those points in the correct way without having to, again, grade it 14 times over, or however many students have responded, okay? And not to mention, it's a lot easier to do that way, all right? Then next we have the question where we had a fill-in. All right. So the mystical power that Jedi had was called the blank, and we had 4 people put the force with a lowercase f. That one's correct. Force with all uppercase. That one's correct. Someone who put the force, I'll still mark that as right. I'll give them the check mark. Let me make one thing clear. When you click on that green check mark, it marks it as fully correct. So if something was worth multiple points, it assumes it's fully correct. If it was a multiple part question and you only want to give them partial points, you have to put in how many points it's worth. Okay. Another person put in the force, we capitalized it. Someone put no clue, so I'm gonna leave that one as wrong. Someone said power, that's wrong. Doesn't know, wrong. Question mark, help. You guys need to watch Star Wars, man. Oh God. And then I'll click save down at the bottom. So just like that again, I'm not even looking, I don't even know who said what. And it really doesn't matter because all I'm doing is grading by question. That's really all that actually matters, is I'm just grading for what is actually correct. Okay. Then I'll click on the next button here. And then for our last question here, at what point of the movie does this song play? And all 14 of you guys said the right answer. So awesome, perfect. And just like that, your point values for you guys will be updated as well. And then for the teacher, I'm able to look at all of this stuff again and notice how much the point values changed, the average changed. Before it was like 2 point something. So all this stuff will update for us. And all that stuff will get back together. Okay. Under the individual tab, this is where you can grade kind of the traditional way, quote unquote traditional way, where you're grading by person or like by paper. So here's our first person's, here's how they responded, etc. Okay, you can still grade it that way. There's nothing wrong with grading it that way. Personally, I think it would just take too long, so it makes more sense to grade by question. Okay, so we'll come back to this in a little bit here for some more example data to kind of play with again in just a minute. Okay, let me go back here. All right, so now I just wanted to show you guys like the whole kind of like finished product there for a Google form. So let's take a look at how to make one from scratch here. So let's go ahead and make a brand new Google form. And just like before, we'll head over to let's actually go to our home base, back to our Google Drive. We'll come up to that new button up in the top left. Now notice Google Forms isn't one of the 3 that's here. We have to go under more, and then there it is. Okay, so it's new, more, and then Google Forms. Then it'll make a brand new one for us. So somebody asked in the chat, where would you see all their scores to write down? We'll take a look at where to find all the data in just a little bit. Basically, you could come here and you can export out a Google Sheet with that little green button, and it shows you everybody's updated scores. Okay, we'll come back to that in a little bit too. All right, so here's how you make a brand new Google form. So again, it was new when you're in Google Drive, new, more, and then Google Forms. Or you could do forms.google.com or forms.new if you are out on the internet elsewhere. So let's go ahead and start making this quiz here. So maybe I'll just make this a math quiz. Math quiz for 1/2020, just so I have a date with it. We can put in a description. It's an addition quiz, maybe. And let's just make a little simple math quiz. And for our first question here, we will just start typing in our question. So we'll just do, 2 + 5. And we'll keep this one just a multiple choice. So 2 plus 5, we'll have 7, 8, 9, or 5. Those are our 4 choices. And just like that, I have a multiple choice question. If I want to make another question, I'll find this little floating rectangle over here on the right-hand side and click on that first button, and it has a little plus and a circle. And I'll make another one. Maybe in this time, I want to have this question, instead of it being multiple choice, I will have it be a short answer question. Somebody just asked, does this automatically make a spot for the students to put their name? No, that's a really, really good question. So if you, as a really, really good rule of thumb, I was going to mention this in a minute, but since you brought it up, as a really, really good rule of thumb, make your first question, I'll move this up here, make your first question, come on, make your first question name. Make your first question name, and that way you're going to know who said what. Okay, that's a really good rule of thumb. Now, the other good rule of thumb too, is to make sure that this form is automatically collecting email addresses. Okay, there's a couple ways to do that. I'm gonna cover that in just a little bit. All right, that way we know who said what. Back over here in my Star Wars quiz, I have no idea who said what. There was no part, there's no question that asked me for your name. There's no part for you to put in your email. I have no idea who said what. That could be a big boo-boo if you do that in class and you need to get grades and you forgot to ask students what their name was when they were doing their quiz. All right. Okay, so our next question down here, we'll do another addition question, but this time we wanted to do a short answer question where we don't have multiple choices. We just have a blank for students to put in the right answer. So in this case, we're going to come over to this drop-down box over here, and we're going to choose the first one that says short answer. Then we'll put in our question. So maybe we'll do 4 plus 9. All right. Now, depending on what settings that you have done before, you may or may not have response validation. If that comes up, just tell us to remove it. We don't need that. And we'll make one more question here. Same button before, the floating rectangle, that first button. And another thing we can do is do checkboxes. And so we can make checkboxes, and we can allow students to checkbox multiple responses that are correct. So we can say, which will result in a sum of 8. So you can put 4 plus 4, oops, 4 plus 4, and 8 plus 2, oops, I keep hitting that. 8 plus 2, 7 plus 1, oops, 7 plus 1, and 3 plus 6. All right, so those are our options, and obviously which two are going to result in the sum of 8, 4 plus 4, and 7 plus 1. Both of those are right, and so what we want to do is make sure that students are picking, are able to pick multiple correct answers. So that's what the checkbox question type does. Okay, multiple choice only lets you pick one. So now that's our quiz. We made it. Of course, you can keep adding more and more questions if you like. But let's say we finished our quiz here. Now we need to fiddle with some settings to make sure it goes out to our students in the right way. Okay, so what we need to do now is come up to the settings gear up in the top right. And this page will open up for us here. And in here is one of the ways that we can make sure we are collecting email addresses from our students. Okay, now, if you are sending these things to your students, I recommend having that on. Okay, response receipts, those are up to you to choose. The issue with that is students are going to see what they responded with. And if you are doing like a quiz or something worth points, it's an easy way for them to see what they got right or wrong, and they can share that with their friends. So you may want to turn that off, depending on how you're using it. Below that, we have restricting users to your school's domain. So if it's something that's only going out to your students, turn that on. All right. If it's something that's being sent to people outside of your school, if you're creating more of like a survey or a poll, and it's going to go out to like parents or something like that, you can turn that off. But if it's something you're sending to your students, keep that on. Limiting to one response. Again, this is the other way that you can guarantee that people are going to have to sign in, or are going to have to put in an email to take your quiz here. Another question somebody had in the chat. I think I missed one from Amy. What was the shortcut you used to make those answers quickly? I was just typing. There's a little bit of predictive AI that'll come up, and you can just click on those little buttons that come up as they come up. I was just using my keyboard to type out those questions. If you're typing out a response, like one of the choices in a multiple choice, hit enter. It'll take you down to the next line. From Debbie, do you need to collect email addresses if you put it in your Google Classroom? Yes. Yes, you'll still have to collect email addresses there too. Good question. Okay, so then you can limit to one response, like I was mentioning. This is your other way that you can guarantee that students' emails are going to be on there. Under that, we have respondents can edit after they submit it or see a summary of charts and text responses. So depending on how you want to structure things, if you want students to have another shot, if it's kind of more of an informal check, these are different things that you can kind of choose what you want to do. All right, then our next tab over that says presentation. This will just choose, it's not a huge difference if you show a progress bar, meaning students are able to see how close they are to being done. You can shuffle the question order. You can also put in a custom message after they finish. So that's nice if you're doing it like for a class thing and say, after you're done, go read pages 11 to 20, 34. I don't know. I'm just making up numbers. So then you can put in a custom message after that. All right. Then our last tab over here is our quizzes tab, and this is where we can set our Google form to auto grade for us. So if we turn this on, that will enable us to start setting point values, and we can start setting correct answers. Okay. So if I make this a quiz, that lets me do that. Now, this option here, locked mode on Chromebooks, this is if your students are using school-issued Chromebooks. So if they are using a school-issued Chromebook, it's probably best to turn this on. All right. What this does is it stops students from being able to open up other tabs and just go in Google for the answer while they are while they're taking your quiz. All right. If students are not on a school-issued Chromebook, do not turn this on. They won't be able to get in. Okay. So if they are, it's a good idea to turn it on. But if they don't have school-issued Chromebooks, just keep it off. Then below that, we have release a grade. So you can have the choice for releasing the grade immediately right after they finish or later after the teacher finishes, and then you can let everybody know their grades, just yourself. And then you can choose whether they can see any questions they missed, any correct answers, any point values. Okay, so if you're trying to keep things really confidential and locked down, you'll probably want to turn all those things off. Okay, so we'll go ahead and save our settings there. Now, since I made this a quiz, I have a new button up here that says total points. Notice that guy up here. So, excuse me. So now I have a total point value here. So now I can set all of my questions to have their own point values, and I can set correct answers for each of those questions. So let's do that now. So our name isn't going to be worth points. I mean, you can if students put it in their name. Otherwise, you can just keep it as required. So students cannot submit it until they put in a name. Under the answer key, this is where you can add or subtract point values. So like for me, I'm not going to put any point values for putting in their name, since it's a required question. They're not going to be able to submit it without putting in their name on it. So I'll just put that at 0 points. Then we'll go into our first question here. We'll click into the first one. As long as we have the little blue bar on the left-hand side, that's how you know you're in the edit mode for one of those questions. So now I can come in here and do my point values and the correct answer. So I'll come down to the answer key button, and I'll choose my correct answer. So 2 plus 5 is 7. And I can set my point values. If I want to make it worth 2 points, I'll do that. Maybe give them a few extra points there. And I'll say done. Now you may have noticed actually, let me go back to my answer key. We can also add answer feedback. We can put in feedback for incorrect answers and feedback for correct answers. So if it's correct, say good job. For incorrect, you can say maybe watch this video for more addition help. And we can come down here and go and find a video. So if you've used like a video in class, you can actually have it come up if a student gets a question wrong. Addition help. I spelled addition wrong. I'll just grab the first question I see. It doesn't matter. All right. Then below that, we can pick our next question, put in the answer key. Now, for a short answer question, as you guys saw when we were doing our little Star Wars quiz earlier, the options that you have for a short answer question have to be exactly what the students type in. All right. So in this case, 4 plus 9 is 13. Oops, 13. And I mean, I can't think of another way that student might type it in, but if maybe for some reason they type the word out, I don't know why they would. You can do that. It is also case sensitive. So if a student types it with all caps or only the first letter capitalized, each of those answers is still correct. And that way you wouldn't have to go do as much fixing later on. All right. And you can choose this here that says mark all other answers as incorrect. Make that worth as many points as you want and then say done. Then you'll choose our last question here. We'll come into the answer key. And since this one is a checkbox question, we can check the multiple questions, or the multiple answers that are right. And we'll say done. Okay. All right. So just like that, we created a self-grading quiz. All right. So when we are ready to send this out to our students to go and do, we come up to the send button up here. We can copy this link here and go and share it with our students. All right. If you are a Google Classroom user, let me show you how to do it in Google Classroom real quick. I'll go into my Google Classroom. I'll go into my whichever classroom I want here. I'm going to create an assignment. Put in the title. Attach in the file from my Google Drive. Again, everything is based around our home base in Google here. There's my math quiz that I just made. I can choose whether or not to have this locked on Chromebooks from here as well. And we also have this option that says grade importing. What that means is whatever point value they get out of, I think it was 6 points in this case, is the point value that they'll get in the Google Classroom. Okay, so we'll go ahead and assign that. And just like that, we posted this math quiz. Here, I'll put this in the classwork section in my Google Classroom. All right. So that is how you make a Google Forms quiz and how you share it with your students. Okay. Now, going back to analyzing your data afterwards, we already looked at how you collect, what you see when you collect all your responses, how you make those little grade changing fixes. One other side note, those 3 types of questions that I showed you, the multiple choice, the checkbox, and the short answer, those are the only 3 that you can use to auto grade. There's other types of questions, but you won't be able to auto grade with those. So just a heads up about that. All right. Once you get all your responses in from your students, you'll come over to the responses tab and you can just grade everything from here, just like we did earlier. So you go into the questions section and do your grading like we just did earlier. If you'd like to see all of your data all at once, you click on this green Google Sheets icon and you'll create a sheet and it gives you a summary of all the responses that you get. I have more responses. I've used this one before, so you can see the timestamps on the left-hand side, but I'll go to today's. So here's all of today's data. All right, and all this stuff is updated in real time. So any students that originally got only a 3 out of 6 originally, but after I made those fixes manually, those scores were updated in here as well. All right, so that will bring us down pretty much right down to the end of our session today. Again, there's a ton more stuff here in the slideshow. Another question from somebody, how do you get the character pictures in the Star Wars quiz? That's a good question. Let me show you that real quick. If you want to have a picture in one of your questions, you can either have a picture as part of your prompt by clicking this icon here, and you can grab a picture from anywhere, or if you want to have it be one of your options, click on that same icon under that section here. Okay. I think we had another question. Let me see. In the short answer, is there a limit to how many words the student can put in? Yes, I don't remember what it is. I think it's like 60 or 100 characters. I'm not sure. I believe there is a limit. I don't remember how much. Good question, though. Okay, just like before, there are add-ons for Google Forms here. We're not going to explore that for our purposes today, though. All right. So here we are. I'm going to kind of go ahead and jump into our wrap-up spiel for the day here, since we're kind of running low on time. Don't want to keep you guys too long. Here on slide number 95, can you believe 95 slides? Jesus. Here on slide number 95, there's a link for you guys for Google Classroom. So if you are brand new to Google Classroom, that is a good way to go to learn more. And here is our to-do list. So if you remember way from the beginning today, here's our to-do list. So we went into the Chrome browser, learned how to make different profiles and bookmarks and extensions. We went into Google Drive, our home base, our cloud storage, and learned how to organize things in there and share things. We went into Google Docs and making hyperlinks and pictures and all that fun stuff. We went into slides and learning how to make them more interactive, not just for notes. Then we went to lunch. Then we came back and did calendar for making different calendar events and sharing your calendar with others. Then we went into Google Sheets for organizing and filtering and looking at all your data, making some charts, all that fun stuff. Then we went into Forms for making some auto-grading quizzes and polls and all that cool stuff. So now we're pretty much at the time for you guys to kind of work around and start to kind of think about how you're going to use all this stuff in class. The one big thing to think about, oh, did I not write it down? One big thing I always like to hear here is, what was your favorite tool or piece from today? I always like to ask this question. What was your guys' favorite app or favorite little tidbit that we came across today? What was your favorite thing? Google Forms is my favorite, absolutely. Anything that lets you auto-grade stuff is a win for me. Google Slides for inserting worksheets, all those little shortcuts and sheets, Google Forms. Let's see. Definitely Forms. All
when we
right.
did the slideshows.
The slideshows, cool. Calendar and Forms. The Slides Carnival, that's always fun. Docs and Forms, putting videos and slides, awesome, awesome. So one other thing I always like to mention in these, in this kind of session where there's just so much information going on, you don't have to worry about, you don't have to worry about knowing everything about Google. You know, I've been doing this Google stuff for a couple of years now. I was a social studies teacher. I just happened to, I guess, be kind of good at Google and teaching or technology kind of stuff, right? And you can just use these things to your advantage, to your situation. You don't have to worry about knowing every single thing, because that's impossible to know. The big thing to be good at is figuring out how to use these things for accomplishing your own goals. All right. You don't have to know every single formula in Google Sheets. You just need to know the ones that are useful for you. Okay. So that's one thing I always like to leave you guys with. Um, for more trainings, for more upcoming webinars, feel free to check out our website here at the bottom of slide number 96 there. And more help links on 97. There's my email again on 98. There's also a survey for you guys if you're so inclined. So if you have any questions or anything as you're kind of digesting all this info, feel free to reach out. If you have any more questions, now's the time to ask. Feel free to fire away. If you're all good, I'll dismiss you now. If you want to stick around and if you have questions about anything else or about graduate credit, I'm about to go into that. If you're not worried about anything else, if you don't need graduate credit, you are free to go. I'll send everybody out an email in a little while that has a certificate of attendance for today. So for our people that don't need any more help or don't have any questions about graduate credit, you guys can have a wonderful day. Stay happy, stay healthy. I'll see you guys next time. Thanks, guys. All right, let's see before that comment gets buried here. Let's see. Melanie says, can you please go over how to schedule time slots on Google Calendar? Yeah. So let me jump back. So here on slide 59 is the step-by-step for you for doing appointment slots. I can show you again real quick though. Let me jump into my Google Calendar. So you will create a calendar event. You just single click on a date in calendar, then choose appointment slots, and then you choose your dates and you choose your times, then click save. And then once you save it, you'll have this appointment page link that's automatically made, and then you just share this link with anybody that you need that needs to sign up for an appointment with you. All right, let's see. For the question for do we need to take a survey in order to get the certificate of attendance? No. I'll send if you signed up for the session in that Google form. That's how I get your email. So then I'll send it that way. So is graduate credit needed if already a graduate? Depending on what your licensure need is. How do you link the YouTube video to the quiz? Good question. So if you want to have a YouTube video in your quiz, we will come over here. It's not going to be part of a question. It's going to be one of those things that's floating over here in the floating rectangle. It's the second from the bottom that says add video. It's not going to be necessarily attached to a question. It'll just kind of be floating by itself, but then you can just have a question right under it. So you can just put in a video. I'll just put in Crash Course, always like those. And you can put in that, and then you can put in your questions below that. All right. Cool. All right. Let me run through for the last of us that are, excuse me, that are hanging out in here for graduate credit. Go that one. There we go. So again, on slide number 99 is where we have info for graduate credit. The first link at the top is the step-by-step for how to register for graduate credit. No, for Michelle, was there a quiz I needed? No, that was just as an example for you guys. No worries, no worries. So what I have on my screen now is the step-by-step for how to register for graduate credit. So it has a link, and you just kind of follow all those directions there, and then you'll be registered for the graduate credit. If you, back on the slideshow, again, there's two options for how you can earn the graduate credit. Since you guys came to this training today, this one's 5 hours, and this is, so what you would do is if you do 5 hours with me, you do the job embedded log. Under that more info button at the bottom. Thanks, Michelle. Thank you very much. Under that more info button, it'll take you over to this page, and it gives you the explanations for those as well. And this is the log. The second page is the job embedded log. Pretty much all you're doing is explaining different ways that you're using what you learned today in your daily work. Okay, so all you're filling in is date, time, and then what you did, what job task you did using something that you learned today. Okay, and just how many hours it took you to do that, or how many, how long it took you to use that. So like if you used a Google form to make a quiz for students, you put in the time and the date that you made it. Say I made a Google form in this part here, saying I made a Google form for math quiz for students. I'm gonna grade it once I get it back from them. It took me an hour to make, and then I could do the next one. I graded the Google form that I gave to students, and then I'll take their grades and put it in my regular grade book. And then you just fill out your daily activities that you're doing. Okay. I'll keep track of everything. Basically, you'll just send everything to me once you kind of finish up your job embedded log here. Okay. All right. Any other questions for me? Any other questions for me? Yeah, thank you guys for coming. Glad to help. Bye, guys. Thanks for coming.